Hello and welcome. Welcome, Pam, and welcome, Erica, to our conversation about impact tilt pattern. Pam, I'm curious, what are the top things we want to know about the impact pattern?
Yeah, so the impact pattern is very interesting. Interested in the future and kind of prescient even about the future. Very tapped into imagination and picking up on cues from the environment. Like disparate information from a lot of different sources, and then having interesting insights about what's next. So, tuned into trends that might be interesting, but also, what is the next risk? What is the next iteration of what's possible in the world? And I think underneath the surface, they're looking for hope themselves. A lot of times there was an upbringing of, feeling that I'm not special or I'm not powerful enough. And that's probably very subconscious. And they'll overcompensate by thinking, I am powerful, I must be powerful. In fact, I must be kind of omnipotent and resilient no matter what, to overcome things that seem very hopeless in order to be the hope and the hero for the future.
I hear a lot of fast-moving words when you described impact. So what would be, as a client or as you're coaching a client, what would be a bit of coaching awareness to have when you're coaching an impact?
Yeah, so they have such a strong sense of internal urgency that probably the very best thing that we could do as coaches is to slow down ourselves and kind of slow down our tempo and our cadence as working with them, to give them the space to slow down and ground themselves in wisdom, so tapping into their inner wisdom and mindfulness and caring about what's really most important, and also tuning into people and how they're affecting people. So clarity is the path of development and integration. And clarity is very good at slowing down, being patient, thinking through the details, getting into the planning and analyzing. And that's what they'll miss. So if we model that and emulate kind of that peaceful environment for them, and just show up very real ourselves and let them be that with us, and they kind of learn to expect that, then we can tap into some pretty amazing things.
Erica, I'm curious what you think when you have an impact client and you receive some resistance to slowing down, contemplating, thinking about people as opposed to moving quickly. What goes on for you as a coach in that environment?
That's a really good question, right? Because I definitely relate to the impact piece as well. And, being kind of, switching back and forth between connection and impact, I can relate to that. Everything that they probably feel I don't have control or power, is difficult for them to experience, right? So the question is, how can you make sure they're still in power, right? But still, are open, that openness to experience something different, right? I think so. For me, the entrance would be in resilience. Resilience is kind of in the middle. So how can you leverage that openness to try new things, right? Openness for new things for themselves as well, and try to experiment. Underlying, I think that courage piece that also part of impact is, being afraid of showing vulnerability, and perhaps, trying that path as well in terms of opening up to you as coach.
So that being said, from the client side, Erica, Pam, I'm curious then, what's it like to coach from the impact side when you're working with clients in other tilt patterns?
Yes. So I'm aware of my own impact pattern or preference, that sometimes I might like them to get the point quicker. I might want for them to figure out their way forward quicker. So I also have to ground myself in clarity before coaching somebody who's in impact, because if I'm with an impact person, it can get quite, the cadence can really get fast. And we all of a sudden we can be having way too much fun and laughing and, what's possible. And, I could be with them doing that and enjoying it myself. So I have to avoid that temptation to, work at a clip like that with them, and staying too much in what's possible and what are you going to do. Whereas, if I'm able to be self-aware about that and sit more in clarity a little longer and say, well, let's think about the thoughts a little bit more, and the relationships, and the how are you impacting others part more, then I'm actually serving them much better.
Erica, what are your thoughts in really having transformational coaching as opposed to transactional coaching when we're dealing with impact on both sides?
Right. So the question is, what is transformational coaching versus transactional coaching, right? And then we talked about that. It's really about going deeper in terms of really understanding what drives us, the reasons behind things we do. And, for me, that applies to all the types that we interact with, right? So it is also for the impact, really understanding, so slowing down and understanding the impact of, my behaviors and, what's causing me to do that, understanding what drives me, what needs do I satisfy with that, and what might be a negative implication of what is it that I don't need anymore now that I'm more mature adult, right? So how can I replace a behavior that's more adult-like, more holistic with another one? So it's really about that. And I think the impact person is a really great person for that, because they are so imaginative. They really think about new options, and they're really likely to put it in action, right? So we can really work with these two things with them as well. Just as Pam said, it's about slowing down and taking the time to understand and not being afraid to see what they don't like to see, perhaps, or have avoided seeing.
And they'll be quite clever about avoiding it as well, because their attachment, the way that they attached is dismissive of others and avoidant of that slowing down. So avoidant of others as well. So we have to keep that in mind, that if they're a pretty strong impact, they're going to try to avoid being wrong, avoid not getting it right, avoid not being in charge. Like they want to be in charge, and have others follow. And so, that insecurity is about vulnerability, and also I'm not special enough. So I'm always going to be seeking to be terminally original, so off on the next project. So very good at starting projects, especially big projects, and then underestimating the difficulty of execution and the deep details and so forth. So they might come into coaching really irritated with somebody who's kind of pushing the issue on, let's make sure that we're clear first. Let's make sure that we've got all of our details analyzed first. And somebody like that might be very resistant to their way of kind of moving forward with the unknown in a way that's okay. They're okay with being, in ambiguity and uncertainty and not knowing, and just want to iterate something forward, which might work really well in an entrepreneurial environment, in a startup, et cetera. You have to be a little bit kind of have the hubris to believe in some future that you put your energy behind. And you have to be a little bit, very comfortable with risk, and so forth, but you're going to be kind of irritated with anything that might slow that down, if you're impact. And so in certain circumstances, it's great. In a bigger organization, that could be very troublesome to their leadership, because they can be, as Erica said, a little bit immature about treating people in ways that they shouldn't be treating them, dismissing them, objectifying them, running ahead of them, kind of belittling. So some of those sorts of things, they're not taking responsibility for, and need to see the impact and the consequences in their own life, before they'll actually slow down enough to get more clear.
Yeah, beautifully said. And I know we've all had clients like that for sure.
Yeah, and I also want to add, we might even see that, showing up with us in coaching, right? If somebody is an extreme impact, it could be that they also use us to let out the anger and hiding vulnerability by attacking us, or, telling us, you don't really have the credentials. Who are you? So it could show up there as well, right? It's a defense mechanism, so they don't have to face their own immaturity, vulnerability, so they can, picking on us as well as coaches.
Yeah, you'll often find impact people thinking they don't need coaching. So they can be tough ones on that, it's great when you find somebody who is impact, who understands and values the perspectives of others, because then they can do pretty amazing things and actually make some of those dreams come true. But when you find someone who's resistant to anyone else being intelligent enough, or whatever it is that is enough, not big enough, that's when you're probably dealing with a very strong defense mechanism, where you might not be able to get them to slow down. And I always tell them, slow down 10% and let's see what happens. And situations where they're fast moving forward, if we can help them find things that they care deeply about, like people, their family, their kids, or whatever, those might be great places for them to slow down. Or an idea that they have, how can you slow down and really investigate this more deeply because you care about it so much? And then they see the benefit of it, and that can change everything. So it can make them more open to learning from other people.
So that we give ourselves some balance in both directions between coaching impacts and being an impact coach, I'm wondering, Pam, if you would give us 3 tips if you are an impact coach coaching anyone else from any other tilt pattern. What are the 3 things to be very mindful of as an impact coach?
Well, Carol, I love your use of the word mindful, because that's one of them. Being mindful of what it is that they are there to tell you, so helping them tap into their own mindfulness is one. Another I've already said, which is if you can just slow down 10% and play with that 10% in some different way that grounds you, then that's really important. And then I guess the third thing would be people, their mindset about how they think about people. They can tend to think about people as useful to them and to their big idea, or not useful, and then, kick them out because they're not. And so increasing their respect for people as very valuable, and not valuable to their idea, but just valuable in general as human beings, and that they deserve respect and trust, and for you to be trustworthy, and those sorts of things. So it's really those 2 quadrants of humanity and wisdom, discernment, being able to say no and think of the no's in your big idea. And then the clarity, which is slow down 10% and do your homework more.
Slow down seemed to be the buzzword of impact. That is for sure.
Totally.
Anything
Totally.
else that you all would like to add for our conversation today?
I think we are good. We're looking forward to our discussion, of course. This will be an interesting one as well.
Great. Thank you so much for being here.